think it should be recorded. Right. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm very excited. So, AEO is a big topic, and there's lots of I don't know, crud out there, snake oil. So, um, 2 months ago we did an AEO with Lily Ray about how to think about. Sorry, we did a Q&A with Lily Ray about how to think about AEO and how it fits into your tool belt as a marketer. And I think about this one as like a double click almost into a more tactical deep dive on a real story of AEO working for a real SaaS company, driving real results from real people who are doing the work. So I'm excited for this one. And yeah, I think we're gonna get a lot of value. We're gonna do maybe 20 minutes where Liam and Ben will give some context about the story and what worked, and then we'll dive into Q&A and be able to answer all your AEO questions. Let's do it. Liam, the
All
mic
right, I'll
is
share my screen. Such a Zoom noob. Okay, here we go. Oh, sharing is not turned on. You can request multiple presenters sharing for this meeting. I've sent you a request.
Yeah, there you go. It's all good.
All right. So shared this story like whenever it was, like a month ago or something. So have to be walk on a delicate line here because our clients don't like us publicly connecting our work to them. So we have to sort of talk about things in the abstract sense. So I'll try to be as specific and tactical as possible without putting my clients at a disadvantage. But if you look at our website, look around our funnel, you can kind of connect the dots. So this story is how we helped a B2B SaaS company go from roughly 575 trials, a PLG company per month, to around 3.7K trials per month. We did this in 7 weeks. This was all measured via self-reported attribution. This is the first 7 weeks of working together, so we're well beyond this. Um, Funnily enough, when we first started working with them, we worked alongside an SEO agency. They wanted to validate AEO as a strategy, and since then we've sort of displaced that SEO agency, and we're now responsible for all of their search optimization. So just quick background. So also on the call is Ben, who's my co-founder. So if you have any like technical questions, he's the man. I'd say this is one of our sort of core differentiators. So Ben's software engineer, but also an AI researcher by trade. So this gives us two advantages. And this just kind of frames the conversation and the type of questions you can ask, and also sort of how we approach this. So the first one is we use our own technology and software under the hood. This is one of our key differentiators. Unfortunately, it doesn't make it very easy for you to replicate. So, for example, we've built our own analytics. This is our own system, all the way through to sort of briefs and air ops style content workflows. And so this just gives our clients a clear data advantage. We really try to approach marketing. I think this is why AEO is such a good fit through the eye of an engineer. Inputs, outputs, feedback loops. That's the first differentiator, and the second differentiator is he has built using LLMs in a past life, really before like GPT was a thing. And so this has allowed us to try operate from first principles. Of course, we don't know. We don't have any secret sauce about how ChatGPT or OpenAI operates. But if you understand how LLMs work, you can kind of hypothesize, how this content is being retrieved and prioritized. And this sort of translates into us doing our own R&D. So we heavily focus on Reddit, and I'll come on to how we approach that towards the end. So we did our own research recently. I don't know if it's okay to say this, Ben, we basically decrypted the TCP traffic from ChatGPT to understand how it operates under the hood. And we found that Reddit plays a huge part in influencing ChatGPT's answers. And by that, I don't mean like in the UI, in the user interface, where it shows, hey, this thread came from Reddit, but what's happening before what the end user sees. So yeah, here's just some evidence, just so I'm not like making this up. So yeah, average around 575 trials per month. Got them to about 3.7K per month in about 7 weeks. This is measured via self-reported attribution, which of course isn't 100% accurate. We found it to be the most accurate. So in terms of like measurement, this is one of the biggest challenges, I think. So leading indicators we're looking at, share of voice, mention rate, citation rate for the prompts that we care about. Ideally, category terms, commercial intent. We don't really care about informational prompts. All the way through to tracking AI referral traffic on the website. How many people are clicking through? So that's one of the reports we set up here. If you want the regex for this report, just let me know. You can add it to your GA4. And then we're also looking at the lagging indicators of, people, conversion events, tying that back to the channels, because I probably don't have to tell you guys, probably preaching to the choir, but attribution is an absolute nightmare. And people might be getting influenced in LLMs. You might be influencing the category narrative, but when they actually book a demo or whatever your conversion event is, they might be going direct to your website, or they might be searching a branded term on Google, and click/view attribution is just going to really miss that. And as I said as well, because I know this is like a hot topic, AEO versus AEO, um, you know, everything we do doesn't harm the SEO side of things. So as it says there, our content, when we compared it against the SEO agency, was outperforming it by 3 to 5x. In fact, something we're really proud of is across all clients globally, all of our content ranks on page one of Google. So we put a lot of effort into how we structure our content to make sure it's high quality. I'm going to skip the sort of backstory. I don't kind of need to convince you guys about what's going on at the macro. Um, so there's really three things to think about. AI search measurement. So how do we measure the impact we're having in these LLMs? How do we structure our on-page content to ensure that is optimized for AI? And then how do we build our off-page presence to ensure that, as a company, we're trusted and that we, make it into the end citations. By the way, I haven't got a chat up here, so if, just sorry, just in case you're getting any comments or anything. Keep me on track. Feel free to interrupt, Eric, by the way. So from a measurement perspective, this is how we like to look at it. So on the quant side, we're measuring mention rate, citation rate, share of voice, and average position. So mention rate is how often these assistants are naming your brand in relevant answers. This is the most important because you could be a cited source, but you might not actually be mentioned or recommended as a brand. Citation rate, this is how often your information is being cited. And then share of voice is basically your relative presence versus competitors. Now, the important thing here with, I guess, any metrics is you want to slice and dice this, right? So, for example, if we look at like our platform, and this is, not trying to innovate here. This is based on existing platforms, but you want to slice and dice these metrics, right? You want to look at the topic pillars or the clusters that you care about, right? Are there certain category terms, certain product capabilities, certain topics that you have that you want to own? You really want to understand these metrics for those pillars or clusters, rather than always looking at things at a global level, right? Because things might look good at a global level, or it might look bad, but you might actually be winning or losing on certain topics that you care about. So it's really important to slice the data we found. Average position. Some people say you can't track your position in LLMs. To be honest, all of this is probabilistic. So like even when you log into any of these tools like Profound or Scrunch, what you see in the dashboard isn't the gospel truth. It's really just an assessment, right? So LLMs are probabilistic. You'll know that two people could put the same prompt in and receive a different response. So the way to combat that, and there's no guaranteed way, but you just want to test at enough volume so that you reach statistical significance. So for an average position perspective, we're just weighting across all of the prompts where you rank. Yes, it might differ user to user, but it's just given as a signal. Again, it's not the gospel truth. Qualitative side, I think this is actually sort of underappreciated. Numbers tell us the sort of what, but they don't really tell us the why or the how. So we like to look at citation quality, the quality of the citations that I mentioned in your brand. If the quality is low, the information being pulled through is generic, outdated, incorrect. One of the, I guess, downsides of LLMs, if we look at, I think I created like a random conversation here. If you look at sort of the citations, is a lot of the time, the sources that are essentially controlling your narrative are third parties, and those third parties could be competitors, right? And so, is your competitor incentivized to put you in the best light to, talk about your differentiators? Probably not, right? And so that's kind of one of the things you need to keep an eye on is who is influencing or controlling your narrative. And so we want to sort of have those qualitative understanding of those citations, as well as the answer quality. So the sort of information that's actually making it through the answer. So citation quality would be, me going through to one of these pages and look at how we're being positioned, whereas answered would be the information being pulled through here as well.
Liam, can I just add to that?
Yeah, of course.
So just in the chat, I saw a comment from Ella, just on that topic of basically like how do you actually model these systems? And you're absolutely right. It's like, so how do you, we've gone from PageRank, which, if you have a finite set of URLs within the space is deterministic. And now we've moved to an agent style system where the agent is using web search at least as one of its primary tools. It's using a lot of other tools, and we can go into that, but it's using it as one of the primary tools. And so you basically need to figure out, well, how do you model a probabilistic system? And so what we do, and actually Anthropic released some work on this, so we've also borrowed essentially, we model a margin of error for all our clients. So the way you would look at it is you look at all your prompts and you look at the topical variance across your areas. Let's say you're in like cold email, for instance, right? That could be a very narrow space. So you might need less prompts to get your margin of error. So let's say less than 5%, but let's say you're an e-commerce platform selling everything from shirts to like, I don't know, seats. You're going to need a lot more prompts to basically get your margin of error down. So that's how we model it out from that standpoint. And then just like kind of basically go a little bit further on that is basically actually LLMs, like from an actual programmatic standpoint, you can actually run them like, basically when I've done this, you can run it in a deterministic manner, basically. Number one is to turn down the temperature to 0. And then number two is just to change one of the activation functions. So basically, this whole hypothesis that basically they are stochastic, but there's everything like, in the world, we've managed to model so many different things like flight, like the turbulence in an airplane is stochastic, but we've managed to have like controllers that model these systems. And it's the same for basically LLMs. So all I would say is basically you just got to model it from a probabilistic standpoint to basically know what you're measuring is signal rather than just noise. That's all I had.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I look at it as a non-technical person is just we don't know we don't know with 100% certainty, and so we just need to test to a degree that is going to give us enough confidence to trust the data. This is definitely one of the downsides we've seen with like third-party software is they're just not testing at a high enough volume to give you conviction in the data. So
Can we get
just
sorry, go ahead.
just one more, sorry, one more thing that I wanted to add to that, Liam, is basically a lot of these platforms, you really need to ask them how they're testing because a lot of them don't test with the model you think. And actually, that's part of the Reddit research we did when we look at the decrypted TCP traffic for ChatGPT, et cetera. Basically, you can see that there's different paid and let's say free tier models being used. And you see the names of the models. One of them for ChatGPT is Sonic Berry, for instance. You've probably heard that name passed around. And you can even see how it like uses different tools and stuff. So basically, you really want to know, like, well, what are the 800 million users or almost a billion users now using for ChatGPT? And then what are the, let's say 2 billion plus users on AI mode and AI overviews getting? And you want to emulate that in your testing setup and you want to avoid bias because a lot of these platforms are actually just injecting a huge amount of bias and not testing what you want. And that's, as Liam mentioned, that's another reason along with the volume that you're not seeing basically repeatable, you're getting noise basically, essentially.
Eric,
That makes a lot of sense. Can you go back to this first section, which is I just want to kind of summarize, but it's measurement and then kind of mapping the prompt universe, right? So for this client,
one?
the first section is like AI search measurement, just to
Oh,
summarize.
okay. This one. Yeah.
But I just want to summarize like in a couple sentences how you approach this with this client. Like they came in, you started an AEO initiative, like you looked at those core metrics for measurement to understand like where the opportunity was. Then you map their prompt universe, and then that gave you like an idea of what you were going after. Is that like the stupid
Yeah,
version of
yeah,
like
for
what you did?
sure. Yeah. So like not the stupid version, to be honest. Like so in SEO you do keyword research, and you can like log into Ahrefs, SEMrush, and you can see, oh, this keyword has this much volume. This is kind of like and it was a very deterministic model, right? Oh, okay, if I rank position 2 for this keyword, I get this many clicks, I get this many conversions. Whereas in AEO, we're thinking more about like prompts, these conversations, right? Like, for example, this one, it's like, hey, I'm the founder of a marketing agency that runs ads. We're looking for a creative analytics tool that, here's my budget. There's just so much more upfront. There's a longer tail to capture and so much more context. And so when we say like mapping out this prompt universe, what we're thinking about is like, what is that range of prompts that your ideal customers are asking? And again, this is a hypothesis. We don't know. We don't know what people are putting into ChatGPT, and so this is why you want to ideally use like first party information you have, whether it be sales call transcripts, customer conversations. But again, all of this is probabilistic testing. But if we can ground that with the language that your customer is actually using, then we can ideally test in a realistic scenario where, okay, well, if they're asking these questions, these are the answers that are appearing in LLMs.
And how would you? So that makes a bunch of sense. It's like very similar to, if you're a director of demand gen at like a growth stage startup, you're doubling down on AEO. It's similar to the process you'd use for SEO, which is you're mapping your opportunity and then deciding what to go after. But the opportunity is different because it's prompts instead of keywords. How like if you're in that shoe, director of demand gen, growth stage startup, um, how do you actually do that? Like I know you mentioned Scrunch. Um, yeah, what would you
Yeah.
recommend for that person to actually do this process? It seems like
Yeah.
mapping the keyword prompt universe is not super difficult because we can use our
Mm.
brains to be like, what prompts do we care about
Mm.
most, as well as some data. But the hard part seems to be the like, which ones of these should I prioritize, right? Like where the
Yeah.
opportunity is that possible right now or no?
Um, Not really. So I do think, by the way, like with ads being released in ChatGPT, for example, like
Mhm.
you as a marketer, would you be willing to spend 10K a month on ads if you can't get impression data and see what like people are viewing and clicking? Probably not, right? So I think that is going to come, and I think we are going to have access to that type of data. Just look at the evolution of Google and Google Ads. I think we're going to see the parallel. I would just use an out of the box software. Like we overcomplicate things, right? For a reason, it gives us a data advantage, but I couldn't actually load it. They're not couldn't log in. But yeah, I definitely use a tool like Scrunch. What these tools do is they will create a set of prompts for you. You do need to be careful of that because these are synthetic prompts. They've probably just scrape your website and say, oh, they do this thing. I'm going to search that keyword. I'm not sure if any of these tools have the option for you to upload like sales call transcripts and stuff like that. They might allow you to create custom prompts, but I would just do that. I would do that. Like the MVP of this and the least reliable option is like, just going into ChatGPT and see how you're appearing. But the issue with this is like this ChatGPT workspace is filled with bias, right?
Yeah.
It has it has a knowledge graph of who I am, what my problems are, and so every answer is going to be personalized to Liam, not my ICP. So I would definitely try to use a third party out of the box software to get measurement.
Okay, great. Yeah, does that make sense? So kind of use use Scrunch to get the list of to get your prompt universe, but then like use your brain a lot to improve the prompt universe, but then really use Scrunch to get the because they give you data, right, on
Yeah.
each of these prompts and how your quote, I don't know,
Yeah. So
ranking
like
is for each of them,
there's
which
some
you can use for
screenshots
data.
here. Like you create these prompts. So you say, "Hey, I'm Zoom Info." They'll create some personas and then some prompts, and then you basically test those prompts. Probably the best
Yeah.
way to think about this is like ultimately what matters most in SEO has always mattered most are your like commercial intent queries, like
Mhm.
best platform or owning those category terms. And so if I was to like focus on a specific area, it'd be that set of prompts. Like if you're Like for example, in this example, I did like a creative analytics tool, it'd be all the variations of like creative analytics platform. What is the best creative analytics platform? And, probably slice that down by like jobs to be done. I would measure that set of prompts, and I would try to, like, I would focus my content and off-page strategy around that as well, because this is likely where the highest commercial intent is.
Lovely. Thanks. That's super helpful. Um, Everyone, keep putting your questions in the chat. We're going a little over. We're gonna try to keep this presentation section short, and then we'll get to open
I
Q&A.
mean, if you want to get to questions, we can end it there. It's up to you.
Well, I think that's like the core foundational piece, but you had good stuff about creating citable content, like what good content is.
Yeah.
So maybe we hit this, and then
Cool.
yeah, and then we can open it.
Okay. Yeah. So when we first got started, we were, as everyone was, we were sort of reading the research papers, like trying to understand like what, how do these LLMs retrieve and prioritize information. And so we developed this framework called Citable. So we grounded this in Anthropic research. We leaned heavily on Google's Agree framework. So none of this is like, crazy. It's just simple stuff, but it gave us just a rubric to operate with. And so every piece of content we create for clients, we score it based on this rubric. And we actually have like a free tool on our website where you just chuck your content in here, and it'll score you on this rubric and bake it all down with lots of like details on how to improve. So just to break it down, so the C of Citable is clear entity and structure. So basically lead in with the bottom line up front of what this piece of content is. So you'll probably see, you go to most blogs nowadays, they all have this sort of TLDR at the top, the bluff. Some companies have been doing this for years, but this is now like non-negotiable, because you think of when these LLMs are coming onto your page of content, they want context fast. Like, what is this content about? Is this relevant to the user's prompt or not? And so by sort of front loading that context, you're making it easy to identify what the content is about. Intent architecture. So we ideally want to cover adjacent intents within the pieces within the content. So if you think about how people behave with LLMs, usually they're not just asking like one prompt. Usually they're having a conversation, and they're asking such a wide range of questions. Like, I need a tool that integrates with this. This is my pricing. How do I do this? Okay, these are my problems. What is the best way to solve this? Like, I don't know about you, but it's almost like I go into detail with these LLMs, and it provides a huge long tail of queries that they need to go out and search for when they're doing the query fan out process. And so we don't want to just answer the first question for these LLMs, right? We want to control as much of the narrative in these citations as possible, and so ideally we want our content to answer as many questions as possible. We kind of want to sort of not just answer the first question, but the second follow-up and the third follow-up. And the best way to do that is cover those, adjacent intents within your content. So talk about, when competitor A makes sense, what are your differences to competitor A? Who do you integrate with? Explicitly naming your integration partners. What other use cases do you help with? Linking out to other content, basically guiding the LLM to say, hey, I've got that answer over here. Go to this piece of content or go to this paragraph, rather than just focusing on such a small surface area. Best way to do this, you can either answer that on page on this individual piece of content, or classic sort of pillar and spoke model where you're covering subtopics in other pieces of content. And this is where your interlinking is going to become really important. Third-party validation, this is huge. Again, this is just like we should have been doing this all along, right? So these LLMs use an agree style framework, which kind of these two are very similar in that sense, where basically they're not just going to trust you at face value. They have to verify what you're saying. These LLMs, if we think from a first principle perspective, ChatGPT is optimizing for a good user experience. What's a good user experience? It's providing me a timely, relevant, accurate answer, right? And so they really want to avoid hallucinating, because otherwise, they'll create a bad user experience. They'll lose their brand. And so how they Um, Prevent hallucinations is by supporting claims, looking for, citations. How can I support this information? So whenever you're talking about, why you're better than competitors, stats, pricing, features, etc., ideally you want to support these. Now, we've found personally the best way to do this is through UGC. So when we work with clients, we plug into their G2 to their Trustpilot. We find relevant threads on Reddit. We find relevant YouTube videos, and we're constantly pulling them into the content. So if we say, hey, competitor A is crap and we're great, we're pulling in a review from G2 that supports that claim and literally like says, hey, yes, we used competitor A and we didn't like this thing. And then just using good sort of best practices with citations, linking out so the LLM can actually go verify that. Same with answer grounding. So this is actually Google's Agree framework that LLMs, this is what they use to ground answers for citations. And funnily enough, in our citable framework, we actually reference this. So it's kind of meta. We're grounding our claim in the research that we found. Block structured for RAG. So how these LLMs retrieve information is through RAG. And so we want to make their job easier, right? We want to make the life of LLMs easier. We want them to be able to get the information they need, and we want to make it easy for them to verify any of our claims, right? So this is why nowadays you'll see a lot of people using tables, because tables are far more compact and sort of information dense rather than like, walls of prose, which are kind of more difficult to understand. You have to kind of cut through the filler text. So using HTML tables, FAQs, bullet points, ordered lists, again, ideally, good standard writing we should have been doing all along, but I think we got kind of swept away in sort of storytelling. Anthropic research here says, properly structured content can reduce failed retrievals by 49%. So we want to make the life of these LLMs easier. Otherwise, they're just going to skip you. They're not going to be able to find the information they need, or they're not going to trust your information. And because they don't want to hallucinate, they're just going to skip you. Important thing here is HTML. Like, try not to contain the important information in like nice looking visuals. That's kind of harder to understand for machines. Put it into HTML tables, into text, so they can actually pass the information. Latest and consistent. So we want to use explicit timestamps on page and in schema. So here it says like last updated. It's in the page schema as well. LLMs, there was a recent study where basically they had a bunch of content, and all they did was change the date of that content. They didn't actually change the content itself. Sorry, and they found that it could shift preference by up to 25%. So there's a huge recency bias with these LLMs. The reason being is if information is recent, it's likely to be more relevant for the user, right? And so you can tap into that recency bias by on-page timestamps and in the schema as well. Consistency is important. Again, this touches on the hallucination piece. If what you're saying here is different to what you're saying over here, and that could mean features, pricing, anything, well, the LLM is going to be like, whoa, that's an inconsistency. I don't know which is the right piece of information. And so I'm just going to skip this because I don't want to relay the wrong information back to the user. Final one then, entity graph and schema. So we want to, use structured data. This is, Billy basics. Machines look at information differently to we do. And so we want to be very explicit with our schema. We've seen actually just by implementing structured data, like maybe 15 to 20% uplifts in citations. Just absolutely crazy. Like no net new content, not even improving the content, just adding structured data. So machines can read the content easier. And that's on the content side, but also on like your pricing page, your homepage, etc. So we even put in like, the number of reviews they have on G2, their average rating, community links, stuff like that, to make it very easy for these LLMs to build this knowledge graph of you as a company.
I am just hoping that someone who's listening to this or here is as unsophisticated as me. The structured data piece, can you explain what that actually means? Like, how would I just don't understand how to actually implement structured data. Like if I'm a marketer creating content like this, putting it in Webflow, for example, like what am I actually doing?
Yeah, so this screenshot here on the screen is actually from Webflow. And actually, since this Webflow have literally, I think So if you go into a designer and you go to the page, you hit settings at the page level and you scroll down, you'll see this section that says like custom code. I'm pretty sure they've added a button where you literally click generate schema and it will generate it for you. Structured data is literally what it says on the tin. It takes all of this, sparse content on your page and it puts it into structured data that's easy for machines to understand. So it's going to include things like it's going to reference like, it could be who's the author that's written this piece of content so they can understand author. This is really important for like EAT signals, the URL, image links. We also, like I said, we link out to G2 and the number of reviews they have. We're just making it really easy for when machines come onto this page. Who is this company?
Mhm.
What should I refer to them as? Like, what's their name? What's the entity? Just making it super easy. So if I wouldn't,
And this
I'm
just goes in
non-technical.
the head. It just goes in the head. Like humans can't see it.
Yeah, this is for
It
machines.
just
Yeah. So honestly,
yeah,
if
that's awesome.
like go to ChatGPT and say, hey,
Make me structured data. Yeah.
create some schema for this page. Here's our URL and stuff like that. Like you can see here in Webflow, you just put these variables in, so it basically dynamically populates those variables based on the page, because like blog URLs are going to vary, right? So it's really easy. This will take you like 2 minutes to do, and I'm pretty sure Webflow have created a feature that automatically generates it.
I love that a couple quick wins here are like
And just to add
pretty.
as well, ChatGPT is building out more of its basically knowledge graph. We've seen this recently. That obviously doesn't have as strong as a knowledge graph because it's using Bing instead of Google's proprietary knowledge graph. And so what I would recommend here is if you have any like big name clients, put them in the organization schema. We've seen that work really well, both on an organization
Mm,
schema level and then also in the footer level. Basically, what that does is basically means the LLMs in the knowledge graph are going to associate with you, let's say Coca-Cola, if any of your companies work with them, or IKEA. And that really pulls you into the conversation along with those entities and basically builds your authority within LLMs.
that's awesome. Okay, amazing. So we got first step is to map your set your measurement foundation, map your prompt universe, understand where you want to work, and the way to do it is either to work with a team like Discoverable, which can do all this for you, or to use a tool like a tool like your brain combined with Scrunch to figure this out. And then you want to kind of audit your existing content to make sure that it's citable, and then start pushing on creating new citable content. And you can use their free grader to kind of grade your content on this. And then I'll just summarize quickly. The third part of this is like off-page presence building. And let me know if I'm missing anything here, Liam. But basically, Reddit is one of the most popular or most influential channels. And so you just went on Reddit and looked for relevant threads to the prompts that you were targeting, and then you would write really high quality content in Reddit. Um, Anything that I'm missing on that third?
That's the super short, succinct
Yeah.
summary. Yeah.
And we can, if people have questions, we can double click on that. Okay, lovely. This is awesome, super helpful, really interesting case study on AI actually working. I want to get into Q&A now. Before I do that, Liam and Ben are like AEO experts who are doing lots of interesting stuff, and they took an hour out of their day to do a private Q&A for Demand Collective, and that's only possible because I run a free community that has sponsors that are sponsoring the community. So I'm going to run a quick poll. I call this the shill shed, maybe quick poll that is our sponsors tools. And if you're interested in any of them, I'll do a one-to-one intro from you to the team. So here are the tools. We got Scrunch. AEO made some, we already talked about Scrunch. They're awesome. Seam AI, they're like a modern Sixth Sense, but they're much more AI native and they're much more affordable than Sixth Sense. Vector contact level ads, you can DNon people that visit your website. They have offsite intent to the person level. You can run ads of those people, and then they have bid agents that optimize the bidding for you, and they can run ads on every channel. And then Caliber finally. Uh, Caliber is like better marketing attribution. I would say like a better hockey stick for sophisticated, larger teams that have a lot of data. So these are the tools. If you want a one-to-one intro to them, just say yes to this poll. Oh man, and I was supposed to have one that said if you would like to work with the Discoverable Labs team, but that's pretty easy. Liam and Ben are here, so you can DM them if you're interested in working with them. They're obviously an awesome team. So. Uh, I'll let this up for a little bit and then we can get into Q&A. All right, who wants? So for Q&A, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and then we'll bring you on camera so you can talk through them. I'm gonna hit first. Samantha, you had a question, which I think a lot of people are thinking about, of kind of the balance between brand and SEO for, I would call it like brand content and like quality content. You want to elaborate on that, Samantha?
Yeah, I basically said it there. I think Ella's suggestion could be interesting. Yeah, I have been creating
How
this
can I get
content for the
access
most
to
part.
staging?
Ella, sorry. Um, I have been doing this and I'm just creating it such a volume that it hasn't been that big of a deal yet, but I saw that you guys did like 70 pages for a client in a month, and that is not the volume I'm doing. So just kind of making sure that like the website interface looks good and clean and it's not looking so crazy. But I think that Ella's suggestion could work. I don't know what you guys have done too.
So we've actually done exactly that, what Ella suggested. So um, yeah, we do content at a higher volume than normal, and that's because we've built sort of the back end systems that allow us to do that and ensure quality. And it's not just Ben and I on the team. We have a whole editorial and SEO team that with sort of strict editorial guidelines that allow us to solve for quality and scale. Some we have also seen some companies though that they essentially add a flag um, to in the CMS to any of these articles that are more purpose built for LLMs that hides them from the main blog because some companies prefer that to be more about like company news, thought leadership, and stuff like that. So that's like a really easy option as long as it's still added to the sitemap. It will still get indexed, so it's still people can still discover that content via Google, and if they can discover it via Google, they'll be able to discover it via LLMs as well. But for people just on your blog, they won't see it. So that's like a super easy way to do it. Does that
Helpful.
answer your question?
Okay, great. So we breezed over Reddit saying you just post in threads, and then we got three questions saying, are you doing it from a branded account or a personal one? What happens when your industry is too niche for Reddit? Reddit seems risky. I guess just like talk about your Reddit your Reddit strategy.
Yeah, so to tackle one of them, like sort of to effect of like my ICP is not on Reddit. So the way we view Reddit is not through like lead generation of, hey, post this content, your ICP is hanging out on Reddit, they're going to see the content and hopefully they're going to click through to your website, which is a valid strategy. We're thinking about it more through the lens of, well, we know these LLMs are crawling Reddit and scraping information from there, and then regenerating that information back to users inside the LLM. And so if we can try influence the category narrative because we know that these LLMs are being influenced by these places, then we're doing it from that perspective. And so in that way, it doesn't matter if your ICP is hanging out on Reddit. We're the surface area we're optimizing for is in the LLM answers. But second to that is by nature, you're also going to get more SERP presence because these threads might rank on Google. And then you also get the added benefit of lead generation. So that we think about it from that perspective. So in that way, it doesn't matter too much if your ICP is hanging out on Reddit or not. Again, we're trying to influence the AI answers. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on Reddit. So
I
we
guess
put
then just like what do you do? Like if I'm a
yeah
director of demand gen, I do this process and I'm like, all right, now I want to do the off-page presence building stuff. I want to
yeah
do Reddit. Like what do you do?
Yeah, so like there's a scale here, right? And I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. There's like this side of the scale, which I'd say is like white hat, which is like, hey, I'm Liam. I'm posting from my account. I'm Liam. I work at this company. Like, just added my 2 cents into these conversations. That's like this side of the scale. Very unscalable. Also, not that effective because nobody wants to hear from a vendor's employee, right? Because nobody trusts vendors. You then have this side of the scale, which is like I have 500 accounts and I'm automatically generating content and I'm just spamming, go buy my product. I don't think many people are doing that, but that's kind of like the other end of the scale. We found the sweet spot is somewhere in the middle where you post from non-branded accounts. Because again, it's just, the snake oil car salesman, right? People don't like hearing from vendors. And so we found the sweet spot is there. We have we've built an account infrastructure of high karma agent accounts. We sort of build their karma over time through natural engagement. We don't use like AI generated content or automation or anything like that. And then we're posting content from those accounts. How we identify where to target. So using software like Scrunch is it will tell you the citation. So it will tell you, and I'm sure you can filter, like show me the Reddit threads that are being cited. And so then we'll put comments on those threads because we know AI is already citing them. But then what we're also doing there is, okay, let's say most of those threads are on r-sas, which is like a subreddit, right? Okay, we'll take note of that. Okay, how can we increase our share of voice on r-sas? Because that's clearly a subreddit that is being favored. So you've got the comments on threads that are already being cited, but then just generally increasing your share of voice in the subreddits as a whole, because clearly that's where information is being pulled from.
Yeah, that makes a bunch of sense.
It's tough. I'd say Reddit is really tough, but this is why it's
right.
there is disproportionate upsides because most B2B companies just can't figure it out.
For a lot of reasons, like there's the stigma, and then
Yeah.
there's the like you need a infrastructure of high aged or of aged high karma Reddit accounts, which like is going to be very hard to have in house. So that makes a lot of sense. Along those
Yeah.
lines, I'm going to bring up Wilton next to talk about the bottom of the funnel topics, but I want to ask a question first, which is like if I'm this is like a lot of work, right? So obviously it makes sense to hire an agency to do all of it and get awesome results if there's the opportunity there from the AEO side. If I'm like again, director of demand gen, growth stage SaaS, I'm doing all this other stuff. And I think it's like important, uh, mainly just to show up for like high intent keywords and prompts to like care about AEO, but I don't have the time to like do all of this? Is there like an 80/20 here of like small things that I can do? Or is the truth like, no, you either do it or it's not worth, you know,
Mm,
doing, basically.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, there is. So like this is where the overlap is, right? Like so I would break this down into technical, on page, off page, which are the key buckets of like SEO. So like the 80/20 for technical is making sure that your website is fast, right? So you can literally run a free website audit. There's just search web page speed, I think. You just put in your URL and it will do a performance audit. If you have a slow loading website, that's just kind of a huge red flag. You want to make sure your pages are actually being indexed. So you could just run like a technical audit in Hrefs, which is I'm not sure if there's a free plan. Make sure your content is indexed. Make sure your website is fast. Make sure you're using structured data. There's actually a site called, if you search Google Rich Results Test, paste in a URL of a page and it will tell you if you're using structured data. These things are super, super easy to implement. That's like the 80/20. You can get bogged down on the technical side. On the on page, I would ensure that you have your like feature or solution pages on your website. This is good for two sides, right? Like me as a human, when I land on your website, I actually understand what your product does and I understand its capabilities and how it benefits me. That's like the human side. But then you also have the machine sides. They're doing the exact same thing, right? They're going to your sitemap and they're going, okay, features. What features does this company have? And they're trying to map out your company. I'd have that in place. And then I would probably just try to cover as much of the bottom to middle of funnel space as possible. This is why you see so much like so many listicles like best X tool for Y, right? Is because that's like middle of funnel content, which has high commercial intent, right? If somebody is comparing you and they know your name against a competitor, like that's huge commercial intent, right? They're evaluating you. They're sort of close to making a decision. And so I would just sort of take your top 5 to 10 competitors, do a listicle for each of those. And then you could also do bottom of funnel content. Don't actually see a lot of people doing this, but this is going to be things like company pricing, company integrations, company reviews, company ROI breakdown. We've actually found pricing related or ROI related content is probably top 3 in terms of performance. And it's really as close to the money as you can get, right? If somebody is product aware, so they know the name of your product and they're asking pricing related questions, like that's super, I mean, you can't get any higher intent than that. So again, I would try to cover that. You could take your G2 reviews or Trustpilot reviews and then like throw them into an LLM and say, hey, give me some patterns or turn this into like a structured block of text. And then you could write around that as an article. That to me is like the 80/20 is having those dedicated landing pages, which, going to be your money pages, and then creating the sort of comparison content and bottom of funnel content. That's going to be the 80/20 on the on page. Off page is going to be, I would, try to have some presence on Reddit. I would also just generally think about like it depends on your stage of growth, right? Like if your domain is fresh and you have a low domain authority, I would maybe try build a few links, maybe do a bit of digital PR. And I'm not talking about like going crazy here. You could do this with like $1,000 budget, right? Just to try turn your company from being an ice cold stranger on the internet that machines and people don't trust to something that has a bit of a presence. That's how I'd think about that.
That's great. So technical, fast, pages are indexed, structured data, on page, feature and solution pages, bottom mid funnel content, content about pricing and ROI. You can just run all your content through the citable scoring thing that you guys built, make sure that it's citable, and then the off-page stuff. Yeah, that's money. That's super helpful.
Just on that, like you can turn one concept into many pieces of content. Like for example, if you take Zoom Info is your competitor, right? You could do an article on Zoom Info reviews. What are people really saying about Zoom Info, right? And you could give an overview like that. You could do Zoom Info feature comparison and compare yourself against their features. You could do Zoom Info pricing and compare your pricing against them. So you could get like honestly 3 to 5 pieces of content just for one competitor. And if you do that across 3, 4, 5 competitors, you've got a decent baseline there of content.
And that would be structured like company, competitors, and then each of those are like Zoom Info.
Well, you could. Okay, well, you could. So those could just be individual articles, like
Just on the blog.
Zoom Info pricing breakdown or Zoom Info reviews, what the users really say, or something like this, like 2026. And then you could just break it down. It could be like a 1,500 word article. Let's say you do 5 of those for Zoom Info. You could interlink all of those, and then those could link back to like a best Zoom Info alternatives article or something like that.
Christine and move her to BCC in my response.
Right. Okay, great.
Yeah, and so then you could link back to like a pillar article, which is like either Zoom Info alternatives or best lead intelligence tools, right? And so now you're building that sort of spider web of content, and that's going to help these LLMs navigate through them as well.
Okay, awesome. Real quick, Monty, I don't know if you saw in the chat, Monty said, would being 100% honest with the company profile on Reddit be the way to go to avoid poor sentiment in forums? And then Bhumika said, we literally had a meeting about this where we decided that's the way to go, i.e. saying, hey, this is Randy from Site Tracker. So it doesn't feel like a bot. Just quick thoughts on that. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's a totally fair strategy. 100%. Like, I'm not here to be the moral police. People are being super growth hacky about this. Some people are doing the branded way. Some people are doing the non-branded way. I've jumped on calls with CMOs of Series B companies that are all over LinkedIn, and they've got automated accounts set up doing all kinds of stuff. And so, it comes down to what effect you want to have. But there's definitely ethical considerations as well if you go too far. So yeah, I mean, this is a good place to start.
And just to add to that, so obviously there's the ethical side of it, and then just from a algorithmic side of it, basically the agree stage, like where it goes to pull in supporting answers, it's more likely to basically support, let's say, a link from, let's say, mycompany.com, if the Reddit comment it's pulled out is not obviously from mycompany.com, let's say CEO, because
Mhm.
it's not looking. It'll see it as basically, well, it'll recognize that's the same entity, number one, because we know it's using an entity graph or a knowledge graph, and so it's less likely to use that as a supporting citation. So there's obviously an ethical dimension and there's a performance dimension. If you can clearly differentiate and show that this is like an external third-party account, basically, it's more likely to optimize for the final citation stage.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I will add one comment on there because like um I have seen examples of people doing the branded like, hey, I'm CEO at company, blah blah blah, and I've even seen like that guy like people give him a tough time for doing that, and that's like the most like white hat ethically pure thing you can do on Reddit, and people are giving him a tough time as well. So that's the difficult part is like people don't actually want to hear from vendors, I think. Um, so
Especially
yeah, it comes down to
yeah.
effect. Yeah, especially on Reddit.
All right, Walton, you want to come on and talk about your question?
Yeah, Liam kind of got into it there already in the 80/20, talking about like bottom of funnel, um, doing like the very specific breakdowns and interweaving. And it kind of, I'm almost tempted to just like take all the sales calls that are in my late stage pipeline and just map the entire transcript out into different articles to see like what the stakeholders are talking about in the stages to a close and just like writing against that to see what happens. But
Well, I feel like you should do that either way. Even if you don't create content from it, right? That's good.
yeah, for sure, either way. Um, but just in the way that they phrase it, not in like keyword led. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, I think you covered it, I feel.
Okay, so
So one of our clients, again, growth hacky CMO Series B company, he did that recently. Is he took all the sales call transcripts and just created a very, very like unsexy article. Like it didn't look good, but it was literally like, here's what people say about this competitor: pricing, features, objections. Here's why they chose us over competitor A. Um, I mean, it's very fresh, so I haven't seen the impact, but it sounds similar to what you're thinking. I don't think you can ever go wrong by taking your first party data that you have and speaking in your customer's language. I don't think you can ever go wrong with that.
dude, you should run ads. You should create an ad with like chopped up videos of your prospects talking about competitors too. That would be like really, I feel like that'd be a really compelling ad. I saw I think it's Pipe used to run ads like this that was just recordings of sales calls with like their reactions to the product. And I saw it for months, so it must have been working really well, but that'd be interesting. Um, okay, I'm gonna share something real quick. So we did a practitioner deep dive with Chris Shuptrine, who's the VP of marketing at Tori, about what he calls high intent discoverability, which is basically you figure out your phrase, which is like the one thing that customers call you. It's kind of like a category, but more specific. So for Tori, it was like SaaS management. Um, and then he was like, I just want to, first of all, match that phrase on my website so I can own it. And then I want to own it in organic and paid. And so organic is some of the stuff we talked about. And then paid is like every single channel that someone's exhibiting intent, you can pay above what's recommended and maximize for impression share to just show up for as the first result for these things, which is like, cheap. Like you can do like bid for low volume but super high intent search traffic on Capterra and G2 and Quora. So I thought this is interesting. If anyone's interested, I could link it to you, but I thought this was a good, it kind of dovetails with like the 80/20 stuff that we talked about of like what's the highest impact is obviously these high intent search people who are in market. So I thought that was interesting. Um, okay, quick question. I have a question for you, Liam, that I think is going to be relevant to a lot of people. Is like, so A lot of people who are running, like I said, director of management, growth stage startups, Series A, Series B, maybe are creating a lot of LinkedIn content for like awareness and brand, founder content, posting on LinkedIn, etc. Is there like anything you recommend to um, squeeze all of the juice possible out of that content from an AEO perspective? Like any small things someone should do to maximize what they're getting out of that effort to create that content, or not really?
Yeah. So I actually can't speak from experience here, but LinkedIn citations do seem to be increasing. An experiment I want to run internally is on LinkedIn you can create, I think they're called pulse articles or something like
Oh my
that.
God. So I talked to the director of demand gen at like a really fast growing company. She was like, all we do is started posting to LinkedIn articles and they started getting like a bunch more traffic. Like we're just the same thing that we were posting anywhere else. We would just start posting onto LinkedIn articles and it like was working super well for them. And they started in their self-reported attribution, people would be like, I'm seeing you in LinkedIn articles. And she's like, what is going on? Who reads LinkedIn
Yeah.
articles? But yeah, so that's big.
Yeah, that's exactly what we like. We want to test that, and we are literally just going to repurpose the long form website content, and put it as a pulse article. I think that's something I would test with. Yeah.
I got to start doing that too for demand collected. So easy. We got 2 more minutes. Any other questions? Okay to duplicate blogs on site slash link. Oh, wait, what?
Yeah, sorry, I mean like, publishing the article on like your blog and on LinkedIn, the exact same article, or do you suggest like you make
Hmm.
some change?
Um, I think it would be okay. Because like so duplicated content is a bad thing for like Google, but different platforms, right? LinkedIn, you're optimizing for LLMs on your website. I think it should be okay. If you want to be extra safe, maybe, vary it, 10%, maybe change the hook or something, make it more social appropriate. But I
Yeah.
can't speak from experience if I'm being honest. You'd like to know exactly if that would hurt.
Yeah, we haven't been leveraging LinkedIn blogs at all, so I'm interested. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel
We
like it's
actually we
important
just
thing.
did a small experiment on this. But basically, the way Google, I won't flag it as duplicate content just from a technical standpoint. You'll be okay. Basically, we
Oh,
did this
cool.
with on Medium. We've just done it on Medium so far. We have other experiments planned, and if anyone wants to go really kind of like off the deep end, I would recommend like publishing like books or even small PDFs to LibGen or any of the like third party like Amazon publishers or anywhere like that. We're doing that with some of our clients actually, because
Whoa.
basically that gets into the training data, and basically that's why Meta was sued, Anthropic was sued by ripping out books from binders in secondhand stores. You want to basically push where no one else is pushing, basically.
That's super interesting. Well, this was amazing. You guys are like so obviously on the cutting edge of this stuff. So thanks for taking an hour to share it with us. People in the chat, I want everyone to give this call a score on a scale of 1 to 10. Give us a 1 to 10 rating and a reason why, please. Get some feedback. Let's go. 20 out of 10. From Vumika, we got a 10 with 10 exclamation points from Samantha. Yeah, let's go, Liam. Liam gave it a 10. That's great. Oh, it took my L and playing to the next level. Awesome. Well, if anyone has specific feedback on this session, or ideas on how to make them better, feel free to hit me up. And yeah, Liam and Ben, thanks so much for joining. Your names are here, so the people on this call are not dumb, so they can find you. But anything else that you want to plug or share, or ways that we can be helpful to you?
No, just connect with us on LinkedIn. Happy to jam on any of this. We do like nerding out about this. So yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn if you want to chat.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. This is awesome. Thanks so much, and have a great Thursday, everyone.
Cheers. Have a good one. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
Eric. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.